Hello ladies and gents, and our little venture into the past today is a very sad and tragic one, I'm afraid, but an important element of London's history and an important man in his own right who well deserves to be remembered. The Elephant Man, as we all know him, Joseph Carey Merrick, which is his actual name, and through the film, which is one of the few bits they got wrong, they called him John Merrick, but that was it. I've chosen this image because this was done by forensic anthropologists who taken measurements from Joseph's skull and skeleton, which still survives. Basically what they did was to take away all the deformed bone growth and everything like that and reconstructed his face to give you an image of Joseph Merrick, what he would look like if he had not been the Elephant Man. And this is the image I'm choosing to start and end the video with, because it's a sad start for Joseph Merrick and a fairly sad life, really. I mean, or a very sad life. Some of the conditions he lived in were not nice at all. So right, we're going to go into the Elephant Man now. We'll go on to a picture of as he actually looked like, which is not nice, I know, but there we are. We'll stay on that for a while I read out all his life details. Then we're going to go on to location in Whitechapel Road, and then a little bit of the film from the 1980s, which shows you how Dr. Frederick Treves first came across the Elephant Man. So on to the Elephant Man as he unfortunately looked in his own life. Joseph Carey Merrick, as he would have looked at the worst of his illness. Joseph Carey Merrick was born on the 5th of August 1862. Often erroneously called John Merrick, was an Englishman known for having severe deformities. He was first exhibited at a freak show under the stage name of the Elephant Man, then went on to live at the London Hospital after he met Sir Frederick Treves, subsequently becoming well known in London society. Merrick was born in Leicester and began to develop abnormally before the age of 5. His mother died when he was 11. This, to Joseph Merrick, and we will use his own words, is the first great tragedy of his life, which is what he told Frederick Treves. His father soon remarried. Rejected by his father and stepmother, who was an absolutely horrible woman. Basically, in those days you had to earn your keep, didn't you? There was no benefits or on the what we know it, or sickness or disabilities or whatnot on that. Anyway, one of Joseph's first jobs was as a hawker, going from door to door selling things, and you can imagine how he was looking when people opened the door. They got a shock, and a lot of the doors got slammed in Joseph's face, unfortunately. And when he went home with no money, this lovely stepmother would dish him up a plate a quarter full compared to everyone else's, with the riposte, and that's more than you have earned. That was between about the ages of 14 to 15. After that, he'd had enough of being treated like that, and after a beating from his father, he went to live with his uncle, Charles Merrick. Things didn't work out too well for him there either. No unkindness or anything, but it just didn't work out for him. In 1879, the now 17-year-old Charles Merrick entered the Leicester Union Workhouse. This was for several reasons. He couldn't support himself, and the workhouse was where you went in those days. Also, some of the growths that he had were developing badly and infected and things like that. And this was where, in the Union Infirmary, where Joseph was operated on, and where they removed quite a substantial growth and did what they could for him. Joseph would have been classed as deserving poor in those days. The story that in the film, and what Joseph told himself and people told themselves as part of his showmanship, was that his mum was trampled by an elephant, and that's why he ended up like the Elephant Man. That was done for several reasons. One, because it was a good show story for the freak shows, and two, in the Victorian era and before, deformity was often blamed on sin on the parents and sin on the child. It's an absolutely abhorrent way to look at things, but that's how it was looked at. So with the story and that, he was classed as deserving poor, ended up in the Union Infirmary, which is what we're going to have a look at now, the Leicester Union Workhouse. Here we see the Leicester Union Workhouse right a couple of years after Joseph was there. This is in 1880 or 1881, this picture, so this is exactly as Joseph would have known it. He entered the workhouse, the process of which was giving up what clothing you did have and any valuables you gave up as well, which went to part as your keep, and the poor fellow probably didn't have much at all. And you were given a uniform. He was given what was colloquially called a hot bath. It was anything but hot, deloused and put into either a working environment or, as in Joseph's case, in the infirmary where he was operated on. He was operated on in the infirmary, would have taken some time to recover, and this is in the days before the types of anaesthetics that we've got now. They would have been able to put him out, but with what they had, he would have had vague remembrances of going to sleep and little patches of pain during the operation and things like that. It wasn't as great as it was, and with chloroform and things like that, it could be very risky because you could vomit while under the operation and choke and develop pneumonia afterwards and die. So they obviously cared for him fairly well, that he survived the operation and went on to become the showpiece of the Elephant Man. This is a Victorian workhouse infirmary ward from the late 1800s, so of the era, and very much what it would have looked like where Joseph was. There are some descriptions and things from Dr. Frederick Treves that when he was first taken in, because he was so deformed, they put a screen round the bed, partly for his own comfort and partly because he kept disturbing other people and became something of an attraction, which was not nice and not wanted. Joseph stayed in the workhouse for a period of 5 years. In 1884 he contacted a showman named Sam Torr and proposed that Torr should exhibit him. Torr arranged for a group of men to manage Merrick, whom they named the Elephant Man. After touring the East Midlands, Merrick travelled to London to be exhibited in a penny gaff shop rented by a showman, Tom Norman. Norman's shop was visited by the surgeon Frederick Treves, who invited Merrick to be examined after Merrick was displayed by Treves at a meeting of the Pathological Society of London in 1883. Norman's shop was closed by the police and Merrick joined Sam Roper's circus and was toured in Europe. In Belgium, Merrick was robbed by his road manager and abandoned in Brussels. He eventually made his way back to London Hospital, where he was allowed to stay for the rest of his life. Treves visited him daily, and the pair developed a close friendship. And now, ladies and gents, we're going to go to the location of that shop on the Whitechapel Road, and we're going to see it now, and then we're going to delve into and borrow a little bit of the film and look at it through Frederick Treves' eyes, Dr. Frederick Treves. Dr. Frederick Treves became a very famous doctor. He saved the life of the king. When Queen Victoria's son was due to go to the throne, when she died, King Edward, just before his coronation, he developed appendicitis, and in those days that nearly almost was a death sentence. But Dr. Frederick Treves operated on the king, and the king survived, and he had his coronation, and that, apart from his care of the Elephant Man and his reputation as a damn good doctor, it made Dr. Frederick Treves. Anyway, into the modern era now, and into the location which was filmed by myself, and that's what we're going to see now. Good evening, ladies and gents, and this is now Tower Hamlets Town Hall, but you're standing right in front of what is the only original part of London Hospital. This is the frontage of the original London Hospital, and hopefully a little clue as to who we're going to see today. Right behind me is the shop in which he was exhibited. So our person that we're going to be visiting today, and I'm going to try and broach this as tactfully and respectfully as I can, but it's from a different age when things were really shitty and nasty. Up in there, in the roof, anyone that's watched the Elephant Man film, this is who we're going to be discussing today, the Elephant Man, Joseph Carey Merrick. He was taken to the isolation ward of the London hospital, and the thing that disturbed him all the time at first was the bell. When he was first admitted, he was taken here because he was in a terrible state. It was the bells and the chiming. So up in there was the old isolation ward. So up here, ladies and gentlemen, is originally where Joseph Carey Merrick was taken from, and I don't like to use this word, his keeper of the freak shop that was behind us, what we're going to see in a minute, and taken here by Dr. Frederick Treves, a very distinguished man, Dr. Frederick Treves. Some say he saved the Elephant Man out of kindness and whatnot, and some say that it was for professionalism because he wanted a on-hand kind of freak. But for whatever reasons it was done, Joseph Carey Merrick's life improved massively when he was taken into the hospital. Right, so that's that. Now, to our location, which is this shop here, which is now number 259, but back then it was number 123, and this was where the Elephant Man was exhibited. Dr. Frederick Treves heard about the Elephant Man, and he decided to take a walk over and go and see him. And he couldn't find the man that ran the freak show, so the boy that worked for the man was around. So he went and got the man, and Frederick Treves had to pay more for a private viewing. But yeah, this is the shop, in the back of which is where Joseph Carey Merrick was originally exhibited. Dr. Frederick Treves, as I say, came and saw him and was pretty disgusted by what he see. We're going to be using the Elephant Man film as material, or parts of it, because it's very accurate and pretty nasty at times, but there we are. So yeah, our little window into the past is Joseph Carey Merrick, the Elephant Man, and we are now going to have a look through this shop window, because in the very back of that shop, right in the back of there, and I'm not going to go in there because it's full of ladies, and it's a jewellery shop now, but right in the very back of that shop was where the Elephant Man was exhibited. So, off into the past we go, ladies and gents, and I hope you're all going to find this interesting.
Life is full of surprises. Consider the fate of this creature's poor mother. Struck down in the 4th month of her maternal condition by an elephant, a wild elephant. Struck down on an uncharted African isle. The result is plain to see. Ladies and gentlemen, the terrible Elephant Man. Stand up.
Stand up!
Turn round.
Turn around! Turn around!
Right, we've had our little delve into the past and into the film of the Elephant Man, And as I say, we're back at the hospital here, which is where Joseph Carey Merrick ended his days. The hospital really shouldn't have taken him in. It wasn't for incurables, but Frederick Cargon, who was one of the directors of the hospital, he got a letter to the Times going, and once that got going, a subscription was raised with enough money to furnish a room for Joseph Carey Merrick to live in there for his life, and enough money was given basically for him to live comfortably, which he did. He enjoyed for the first time in his life, through benefactors, a night at the theatre, a holiday in the countryside. He met Princess Alexandra, who would become the future Queen Alexandra when she was princess at the time. She gave him a photograph which he loved dearly and which he treasured very, very much. Yeah, old Bedstead Corner and everything, which is where he used to take his nightly walks. So there'll be a little bit more original photographs and materials and stuff from what I can find. So yeah, as I say, we're back at the hospital now where Joseph Carey Merrick was taken after what you've just seen. Right, in we go again. Hope you all find the rest of the video informative and interesting. See you all inside. Here we see Joseph as he truly looked. A genuine undoctored or uncolorized photograph from the time. What you need to bear in mind is, from what we've already seen, is when Dr. Treves first saw Joseph in the shop in the Whitechapel Road, he wasn't taken from there straight to the hospital to live. He was interviewed a couple of times and pictures and diagrams and stuff were taken, which is what we're going to see in a sec. And that's when he goes to Europe. He's exhibited in Europe, and the French and the Europeans, they thought it was an obscenity. Just like over here, the show had been closed down. Even for the Victorians, he was a bit too much, particularly with some of the ways he was treated. So yeah, there'd been a while in between his interview or first meeting with Dr. Treves in the shop and when he finally comes back into London. I will show you now the pictures or images from the time, which is what we're going to see. This is an image taken for the hospital. He's clothed. There are others where he is naked, and I'm not using those because it's not dignified for him. But this poem is what he wrote about himself. These are his actual words. "'Tis true, my form is something odd, but blaming me is blaming God. Could I create myself anew, I would not fail in pleasing you." Bless him. "My feet and legs are covered with thick lumpy skin, and also my body, like that of an elephant, and almost the same colour. In fact, no one would believe until they saw it that such a thing could exist." After being robbed in Europe and dumped, Joseph somehow made his way back to London. He arrived at London, exhausted and broken, and was purloined and chased through the streets into the station toilets. The only thing Joseph had kept that was of any value to him, that he obviously treasured, was Dr. Frederick Treves' card. When the station officials and the police got the people away and intervened what they could do to help, he was in such a bad way he could barely even talk. So all he did was handed the card, and Dr. Treves was sent for, and Joseph travelled in a hansom cab from the station to the hospital and fell asleep on the journey with sheer exhaustion. But what we're going to see now is Joseph's arrival back in London and his arrival at the hospital. So join me now for this part.
I am not an elephant! I am not an animal! I am a human being!
He is English. He is 21 years of age. His name is John Merrick. He's quite seriously deformed. Don't be frightened, he won't hurt you.
You do not own this man!
I should very much like to meet this gentleman. Good day, Mr. Merrick.
You imagine the kind of life he must have had.
My treasure.
We have a sacred duty to cure the sick, not care for circus animals.
Oh, Mr. Merrick. You're not an elephant man at all.
I wish I could sleep like normal people. Can you cure me?
Your parents are still alive. Do you understand me? Your father, your mother, are they dead?
Now we see the people who saved and helped the Elephant Man. Sir Frederick Treves, he would become Baron Treves, for he's helping saving the life of the king, the coronation and all that. There's a picture of him as he actually was in real life. It's a genuine picture. That's his life details here. He was born in 1853 and he died in 1923. Interestingly enough about Dr. Treves, he was one of the early people to be cremated. He opted to be cremated and was cremated, and his ashes were scattered, and as a small memorial right at the bottom there you can see his signature. Mr. Francis Cargon, who is chairman of the London Hospital. It's this man, as we saw in our little part of the video, that old fella that says, imagine the type of life he must have led. That's this man, a decent man. One of the other chairmans, as you saw in the part of the video, I won't call what I actually thought of him, said, we are not here to care for circus animals. But this decent man here, he wrote to the Times and got a letter going, and it's through the subscriptions and everything and through this man's effort that enough money was raised for the Elephant Man. So a room was put aside for him, which was near Bedstead Square, kind of nice and out the way, and that's where the Elephant Man would have his little walks of a night time and that. So it's through this man's goodness and the goodness of everyone that donated and did everything that they could that the Elephant Man's last years were happy as they could be and comfortable as they could be. Matron Eva Lucas, 1854 to 1919. She was the matron of the London Hospital from 1880 to 1919. So she was matron when the Elephant Man, or Joseph Merrick, was taken in. She was a very stern, strict woman, a very good woman. She revolutionised the hospital, the way it was run and things like that. And when the Elephant Man was taken in, she gave all, like this, she set certain nurses aside to look after him who she knew could be trusted, who wouldn't take people in to view him as a freak and earn money out of it kind of thing. And she gave orders that under no circumstances whatsoever are any mirrors to be brought into these rooms where the Elephant Man was. Dame Madge Kendall, very great actress of her era, 1848 to 1935. And it's Madge that we see in the little clips that kisses Joseph Merrick and says how pleased she is to meet him. It's with Dame Madge Kendall and Princess Alexandra, who we're going to see in a minute, who worked together to get Joseph Merrick the happiest occasions of his life, which was a trip to the theatre, up in the royal box and through the royal stairs, which wasn't normally allowed for commoners, but that was done for so he wouldn't be made a attraction of kind of thing. And he had his first ever holiday in the country, and that was arranged through this lady and the Princess Alexandra, where he stayed with a gamekeeper and his wife, and it was his first ever holiday and he really enjoyed it. Here's a photo of Dame Madge, very pretty woman. Princess Alexandra, as she would become Queen Alexandra. She visited the Joseph Carey Merrick, the Elephant Man, and she sent him gifts and presents, and there were donations, and one of the things he prized most was a signed photograph of the Queen that he had on his mantel shelf, and he loved that picture. A little extract from the 1980 film, because there are no pictures of the time of Joseph at the theatre, but this is pretty much what he enjoyed. And there you see Dame Madge with Joseph at the front, Dr. Treves is just behind, and there's some nurses like at the back, and the matron. And what actually happened in reality is there were a few nurses very well dressed in evening dress in front of Joseph with a little gap in the middle for him to see through, but so he was kind of screened so he wouldn't become an attraction. But yeah, it was arranged through Dame Madge and Princess Alexandra for him to have this little evening out, which is something he really loved. Dr. Treves' card, that card that the poor elephant man Joseph Merrick kept with him all that time while he was in Europe being exhibited in freak shows, and then when he was dumped and made his way back to England, this is the one thing that he prized, and it was his salvation. And we've seen what happened to him in the train station. It was a pretty vile scene, and it is true, that is actually what happened to him. And when he was calmed enough and he was totally exhausted, the only thing he could do was hand this card over, and Dr. Treves was sent for. And that is part one of The Elephant Man. Joseph Carey Merrick concluded. An image of the Whitechapel Road. We can't see the shop, but this is the church garden thing I visited the other day, the Altab Alley thing just in the distance there. And this is exactly as it would have looked when Joseph Carey Merrick came along there. And that concludes part one. Join me again very soon for part two,